Uh, hey everyone. Thanks for joining. I think we've rounded ourselves up here. Um, yeah, thanks for joining the meetup today. We've got Andrew Evans again. And yeah, looking forward to today. We're doing graceful error handling in React, which I was not gracefully doing like an hour ago. So maybe after this meetup, we'll be able to fix some bugs a lot more easily. Um, like Gatsby just makes everything more complicated. Anyways, awesome. So yeah, we're gonna identify some common places where error occurs using traditional, just like really pure JavaScript methods, hooks. We're gonna log some stuff and a bunch more. And as always, this meetup is brought to you by LogRocket. Hint, hint. One of the best ways to actually handle React errors is LogRocket. Not only can you manage, prioritize, and see errors, you really get all the context around what happened that led up to it, why did it happen, and then LogRocket nowadays is actually monitoring billions, literally billions of errors, and is able to recommend saying this error is actually really, really bad compared to the 500 other ones you might have. You should really prioritize that. So please, if you're impressed with the meetup today, go try out LogRocket. I guarantee it's a really good complement, or just completely beats out a lot of the traditional kind of error handling stuff that we're going to go through today. And yeah, we've got a optimizing performance with React Dev Tools meetup on March 30th, and you can go sign up for that at blog.logrocket.com/techmeetups. And this will be recorded and sent around after too. I'm going to enable chat, and if you have any questions, leave them in the Q&A or chat, and I will get to them as they come in. So take it away, Andrew.
All right. Let me see if I can share my screen. Screen share. All right, desktop. Okay. Oh, whoops. Sorry. Okay. This is you see my
Yep.
Okay. All right, cool. Okay, yep. All right. So thanks, Luke, for introducing me. Yeah, today we're going to talk about graceful error handling in React. So I originally had tried to create like a blog post and do a couple things that I normally do, but I kind of the last minute redid some of this, which is basically the same layout that Luke showed in the slide, but it'll be potentially just a little bit different. But I'm gonna show you, I'm just gonna talk about stuff for a little bit, and then I've actually got like a full working project that I'm gonna kind of demo, and I think that'll be good. So let me take it off. Like I said, do an intro. I'm gonna introduce errors, like why we handle them. I'm going to explain like what it looks like all the way from like no handling to full handling. And then I'm going to talk about React error boundary, which is kind of a cool thing that is a little bit older, but is also really great. And that kind of pattern, you should be able to apply to your apps and whatnot. I'll do a small message about LogRocket, and then we can, do the demo. So a little bit about me. I actually work for Amazon, but I have 10 years of industry experience, work full stack, but mainly React these days. I have a master's from Christopher Newport in computer science, and an MBA from William & Mary. And these are some fun pictures of me, my wife, and my baby. So let's talk about errors. Handling errors it's something that like every developer, runs across. You'll see this with, back end, front end. With the front end world, a lot of times, how you handle errors makes a big difference with the user experience. And this is really important with like how people use the app, but it's also important with how you want to maintain the app. Good error handling can really make your customer's life easier and your life as a developer easier. And the ways that you can handle errors, that's a very broad topic, but for the purposes of today, I'm going to narrow it down to custom components. So this is like kind of like the more traditional way you would handle it, and then some ways that you can notify the user through alerts and that kind of thing. And then React error boundary, which is the other way that I just mentioned a minute ago. And then I'll mention LogRocket as well, because you can use LogRocket with these things to be able to see how the errors happen and actively respond to them to help your customers and your app. So no handling. So horrible apps look like this. you basically have, you have like a little input field. Well, this is like a very convoluted example, but you're doing something and it's not being handled, and the result is what you see on the right, where it just like blows up. In this case, I've got an input field. The input field has a validation or an on-change method. The on-change method is trying to do something and throws an error, and there's no handling of it. So you just get like this white screen and all this red. This is really bad. You don't want to do this. And unfortunately, I've actually seen a couple of different production apps that do this. And it's sad. But what's better to do is something like this. So, you have an error and then you show the user a message. So you're gracefully handling that. And then maybe you'll console log it. You could even take it a step further. You can send it out to log, in, like a somewhere where you're storing actual logs, or you could do something like, maybe a LogRocket. But the point is that you can have a way to capture the error, show the message to the user, and allow them to respond.
Hey, Andrew, could you go into slideshow mode? Just a little easier to read.
Oh yeah, sorry. There you go.
No problem. Sweet, thanks.
Okay. I was a little worried that that would not work because of the my fun with Zoom. But anyway, this is a slide I was here before. Bad handling, input field with throwing the error and not handling it. And then this is the better one. So the better one is that same kind of situation, and then the user can see the message and it's logged with the console. And just like I was saying, you could send those logs somewhere else, so then you can act on them. An even better way to handle this would be to have a toaster message or a pop-up, something that's not just something that appears on the screen, but actually grabs the user's attention. And then finally, if you go the other route and try to use React Error Boundary, it's potentially even better, because what you're doing is you're essentially wrapping your error-prone component with a fallback. And so this is kind of, this is actually, like, full disclosure, a copy of Kent Dodd's article about React Error Boundary. But basically, like, you have, this component, and like, this is kind of the output we see on the right. You're typing something in, and then when something goes wrong, you're given the option to reset. So again, the common pattern with all these things is that you see the error, you capture the error happening, and then you allow the user to respond, which is gracefully handling. My plug, or not plug, but I mean, my slide for LogRocket is that, with all these things, with handling the errors and whatnot, you can go and create sessions. So LogRocket is a great tool to be able to do this, because this is like notifying the user and whatnot, but you as the maintainer or the product owner can even take it a step further, and you can do metrics on these errors, and you can identify key places. I saw a project today actually that did this in a way that you could tie a user session directly to when an error happens, and it made the teams that were on call be able to respond very quickly. I'm not going to go into like the details of all that here, but I just highly recommend checking out. They also have a great set of docs, and if you just go to LogRocket's website, you can get started. So let's talk about the demo. All right, so the examples I was just showing you, like I said, I just talked, and so like I want to show you. Oh, this is not the right website. Sorry. There we go. The examples that I was showing you that I wanted to I also want to show you the code for, because what I was just showing you on the screen, I was just kind of like talking at. So I'm going to show you this project in action. So this project is available out on GitHub. I've got the it's right here. You can go download it afterward. But basically, let me go ahead and just do a start. And this has all the examples that I was just talking about. So this is the no handling example. This is what you don't want to do. So you basically have, a component, you have like a, that is trying to do something, and then it throws an error, and you've got no way to handle it. So in this case, I'm in the no handling block. If I type in John, boom, this is not good. This is just, you don't want to do this. So what's better is to do some basic handling. So if you go over and we'll look at the same example here, now we've kind of beefed up our component a little bit. So we have a try catch block. So that's the first step. You can identify the error. And then in this case, we're returning a value that gets displayed. So basically the user is aware that the error has happened. So we have validation. If the everything goes good, you're returning, this little paragraph tag with the username. If things go bad, then, you're getting like the red message. And this is what we see here. And so if I type in John, now you see, and this is the same thing that I was just showing you a second ago. Now let's take this a step further. And if you wanted to go into like actually showing a toast message or a pop-up, in this case, I'm using MUI, so they use a snack bar. It's the same, it's all the same concept. It's just a little box that appears on the screen. What we do a little bit further, we have now, instead of having kind of this like error prone component, which we had here, I kind of consolidated everything into this one component, and I have the validation happening, and I'm controlling some local state that demonstrates the error and determines when to show the snack bar message. And so in this case, if the error is thrown, then if the error is not thrown, then everything is good. You see you see no error message, you see the username. If the error is thrown, it's logged to the console, and then we show this little snack bar message. And again, this is what I had in the slides a second ago. So if we go over here and we say John, boom, you see it like down here on the bottom, there's a little message that shows up. Now, if you want to take this just a slight step further and make it more complicated, you are not really more complicated, but this is potentially something that I've seen more, is when you do this with hooks. So basically have this almost the same setup, except for in this case, I'm using a hook, and the hook is returning an error field. So you could almost kind of see the same pattern if you wanted to use something like Redux or something that you're listening to like a centralized state, and you want to report that in your app. So in this case, I've moved the logic into this hook. And so basically when the user is typing in the value, the validation function runs, and then the hook will return or has a state value that I'm listening for. And based on whether or not the state value changes, I'm actually showing the snack bar. And so that's what this use effect is doing. The use effect is listening for the event, and then it shows it. So that's what is kind of happening here. And just to show you, so I'm not lying, you type this, then bam. And so it's the same kind of thing. But the idea here, not to overcomplicate things, but it's just to show you that normally, these are kind of more or less convoluted examples because they're just very simple. In the real world, you would probably see something more like this, because you'll have, a larger app. You might have more like a centralized state management system, perhaps. But the idea is you'll need to listen for the event and do something. So that's all kind of like, roll your own kind of experience. You're doing all the error handling yourself, and then the step further again with LogRocket would be you would actually fire off like an error event, and then you could register the error and see it in a dashboard and whatnot. So that's kind of like that kind of experience. If you wanted to use React Error Boundary, it takes it even like a step further, because all here we're essentially like piping everything manually. So we're like I'm building the component, I've got the my own snack bar message and all these kind of things. With React Error Boundary, the cool part is that you essentially wrap what would be an error prone component. So your component could like throw an error or something bad could happen, and the error boundary will basically listen for this, and then if it sees the error, then it'll use the error fallback. And so then the error fallback is basically right here. And what that does is it gives the user information that the error has occurred, and then a way to reset it. The other cool part with React Error Boundary too is that originally it was for class-based components, and it is now basically with functional components because of this npm package. React Error Boundary wraps everything up. But just to see it show this in action, and again, I kind of copied Kent Dodd's example because it was really great. If I go over here and like I type Andrew, everything's fine. But if I type in bomb, boom, and you notice over here, the errors are logged. And then right here, we have a message. So again, the central theme of all of these ways to do this is that you're trying to notify the user that the error has occurred, and then you're allowing them the ability to respond. So you're not doing like what happens up here where, the whole app just dies. So that's like, that's a big win. And then the cool part, from here is that these logs, you could send to something like LogRocket so that they can have events and they can like view it. You could also just do the same thing if you have like a custom log server or something like that, and you want to be able to comb logs and see, how things are doing for your user experience. But the idea is that your app basically gracefully handles these problems instead of, essentially just blowing through and just having a horrible experience. So with that, the only other thing that I would say is that these there's like 1,001 ways to kind of handle this. I've been on applications where you do kind of more stuff like this, where you're just showing things. I've also done things where, you might have a situation where like an error might be okay. And so then in that case, you're just logging the event. And it's, the great part about React is it's going to be, whatever works for you and your team. But beyond that, that was kind of like the high level of what I was trying to hope to cover in this topic. And I guess I could open up for questions, or we could talk more about maybe some use cases that you folks might have questions about.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. We got a couple kind of specific questions. I think, could you walk through the hook example a little bit more? And specifically, someone asked about just showing the use username hook and like how that just has been built.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So so the use username, let me go back here to hook handling. Okay. So use username. So this is a custom hook that it just basically does what the form was doing. So we're exposing this validate function, and then we've got these local state variables for the username and the error. The idea was that in the hook handling, we pull these values out from the hook, and then when the user inputs the value, the validation function is called, and then based on like the state, like the error state, we're going to just determine whether or not we want to show the snack bar, and that's what the use effect is doing. Is this answering the question, or is it maybe like slightly too complicated? I can go a little slower. That might help. Sorry if I'm going fast.
I think so. I'll let Ashwin, if you wanted more clarification, let us know. Then yeah, someone asked, could you talk about error types in TypeScript and React? And are there any kind of like different approaches you take based on error types? Any best practices around that?
Yeah, so like when you say like error types, do you mean like creating, like instead of just storing like the generic error, like creating a type on top of that? Or I'm not fully following, I'm sorry.
I guess I think it would be like pure exception versus like warning versus like maybe component level errors versus like JavaScript level errors. Not entirely sure either.
Yeah, no, I mean yeah, I mean so you could do I was on a project where we had like custom error messages, I guess, and like like when you do like enterprise projects, a lot of times messages are kind of important because you like code number 1005 is a fault error or something like that. So like in that case, all of this becomes like slightly more complicated, because basically, like again, these are kind of convoluted because we're just doing try catch. But you could imagine that within the try catch, you could have a whole way to like handle errors. I worked on an app so basically it's a weather app, and what happens is the app it will retrieve like the weather for an area, and then as a batch job it runs and does all these things. This isn't really like a React thing, but you could do the same thing in React. And so basically whenever errors would happen, we had the situation was that you wanted to preserve the data, so you didn't want to overwrite it with something that was empty. So because you always wanted to preserve the latest that was successfully retrieved. So we had like a whole function for that. And then, so like in the try catch here, you would log your error, but then you would have this thing that would evaluate, the situation, the error and whatnot. I don't really have like a super best practice, which I feel bad about not being able to fully answer this question, but like, I would say that kind of thing, like you could create a custom logger. I've also seen people do that before. In the front end world, it's a little different because like in back end, when you log errors, like a lot of times you will have like a source. Like if you're in Amazon, you would probably have like CloudWatch, like logs or something like that you're, putting stuff out to. And so that becomes like something that you're aggregating and doing everything. In the front end world, you kind of just want to capture the event so the user can respond, because you're kind of like interacting with the, what's happening here. Like when I do this and the message is shown, but you still would probably want to send this somewhere to notify the team that's maintaining the app that, hey, this is blowing up. And that's where a tool like LogRocket comes in, because then with something like LogRocket, you can create custom errors, and then you can identify those and you can put metrics behind them. And then, like I was saying, with the example I had this morning, the guy did, he had the full thing was that basically whenever the error happened, they had a thing that would take and copy the link to the LogRocket dashboard and then open a ticket with it. So then the support people would immediately be able to pull up that session, which I thought that was pretty cool. But like, you can get pretty fancy with this kind of stuff. But I would just say that like in general with like I love TypeScript because of types and that kind of thing. And so I would say that you would probably have like a set of types of errors, a set of types of those errors. And then whenever, you have something like this, it's like a try catch, you could run it through something that can align the error with that and then appropriately log it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, if you're typing errors like that, how do you go about anticipating all of them to go then like document or like, yeah, like proactively type them? That seems like challenging.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can create type guards. Like, there's this is just like me like Googling, but I'm pretty sure there's a type guard that you can enforce, because like the error object. Oh,
Look at that.
Oh, look at that. It's a log. but yeah. So then
I didn't do that on purpose.
I know I didn't either. This is totally not planned. But yeah. So the type, yeah. So then you can have like a type of. So then you type name, and then we can have and then the end. Let me see if they have an error. Oh, great. Of course, it's a custom. Yeah, and so then we have an error. Okay, well, this is probably by writing. I thought I did this. I did something like this before. I guess this is basically like kind of what you would do, because the type guard, the idea behind the type guard would be that it forces like a check, and so then if it doesn't coalesce with that, then you have another thing. So I guess you would have like you can, I mean, the error object, like the MDN error. Let me see if it comes up with the error object itself has things where see, like these are specific types of errors that you could potentially see, and so then you could mine that. So like and you have like the cause field. There's like you can put it out into a string and look for things, but you could create something that could like consume these and then identify them and then align them with a type guard, which could then help your app to accurately capture everything.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I didn't actually know there was this many properties on there. Wow.
One of the most fun, like as a side note, one of the most fun things to do is to just go look at web APIs. There's a ton. Like it's I mean, it's kind of like mind boggling. Like there's just stuff that people don't use, and the W3 does a really nice job of documenting it, at least. But yeah.
Cool. All right, I'm gonna try to summarize this question. I think I get what they're asking. When using an error boundary in a standalone component and having children as a property, components are always re-rendered. Get a bunch of different elements. You get a new immutable React element. It always re-renders. So yeah, what's the best way to avoid re-renders and avoiding dedicated component and embedding error boundary like directly in the code? So I think kind of what they're asking is like if you've got a bunch of re-rendering components and you're writing error boundaries directly into them, what's the best practice about that to like make sure they're like actually triggering their error boundaries properly on re-render? I think that's what they're asking.
Yeah, so I think Reactor, I thought the package, let's look at the package real quick. I thought I think that actually has something for this, or it could be the reset logic is listening for, I think you have to like key it with, this is like the value that, you know, it's triggering. So I think that by itself is like a signal to the virtual DOM not to render. Without like diving into the source code of this, I wouldn't fully know. But I mean, I would just say that in order to properly do, oh, they even have a hook. That's cool. I didn't. Everybody should check this out. This is a very like interesting concept. But like I would say that like, you know, do the things that you would normally do with React, which is like, you know, you could like do like a use memo for the like the function that is evaluating the situation, or like you could do sometimes I mean, you could do like a ref for the value if you weren't going with the error boundary example, you know, like you could have everything done in a ref, and that would stop you from doing like rendering. So like you could have like the app like validating and whatever, and then only do the render when like something actually is occurring. And you can get kind of like you can kind of like dice some of that up a little bit, but that would be a thing. And then I mean, you know, you could also do React query, which is like a whole different thing, but that's also more if like you're going to do an API call. But that's what I would say. I would say try to use the tools that, if you're going to do it yourself, try to use the tools that React gives you. And then if not, then I would dive into the way that I think by default React error boundary actually like is handling the performance problems that go with re-renders.
Yeah, we'll like reset and everything.
Yeah, I think
Cool.
it's designed to do that on its own.
Yeah. I think that was most of the questions from the group. My kind of biggest question is like when you're going to I guess probably build net new components or like applications, like how much time do you dedicate to actually designing from like a code infrastructure standpoint, and then like actually designing error states from like how they should look and feel? Like do you spend time up front like kind of figuring out how you want failure to behave, or is it kind of like, okay, we built the thing, let's just add in some error boundaries and like make them good enough?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's like both situations. You know, I mean, I think in general, if you're gonna like sit down to build a full application, you should definitely consider you know, where the errors are and how to handle them. And then I think a step further is like if you're in like a corporate kind of environment, you know, most of the time there's going to be some kind of standard or some kind of like, you know, they've already got like, we handle these kind of errors and the customers are aware of these kind of errors, so we're going to, you know, build it to do that. So I would say that you kind of have to do both. Like you try to anticipate and like build these in, but you know, a big part of it is testing, which is always like a thing that you do with any type of app. And so I think you kind of have both. Like you try to anticipate, you try to build the best you can, but it really comes with testing. And it's like, as you see the errors, you can accommodate, you know, with trying to capture those and then, you know, make it so that you don't have that problem in the future.
Yeah, but I guess, do you write tests for triggering like error boundaries to like make sure they function correctly? Okay,
Yeah.
because usually you're testing to prevent the errors, but
Right. No,
also
yeah.
test the errors, yeah.
Yeah, I do it all the time. Yeah, we don't do it I'll just be completely honest. Like I actually didn't really know about React error boundary until this talk, because like I had always used well, I just pretty much always use Redux. Like I mean, I have like error state, and then I respond to error state, and I would create like a, you know, a component that will pop up if the, you know, error state changes or whatever. But like the situation for like whenever you have like a you know, if you have like an app that's supposed to behave like what you see here, and you know, like the snack bar is supposed to like pop up, you should have a test that covers that. And the only way that you're going to be able to do that is you have to like force it to do it. And just
Right.
like just for tests, just has like all kinds of like nice ways to do that. You can do like mocks, you can do like a mock exception, and then, you know, force it. And then you can either do that, you know, here, and then if you wanted to do something like Playwright or one of those tools where you're actually doing the whole thing, that's a whole different thing, where you're specifically forcing the test runner to like interact with the app in a way that demonstrates it. But to answer your question 100%, I mean, you need to be able to test, or like I'm a big fan of tests, and I try to write tests whenever I can.
Awesome. I think that's all the questions. Yeah, we'll send the recording along with the repo link again in case you want to go test these. I think it's really simple, but like a really good way to kind of demonstrate these 4 different options. And yeah, thanks a lot, Andrew.
Sure. Yep. Thanks for having me.
See ya.